Vita.
We are the two We're the two Pilates Chicks, and it's the end of the year episode, as if you can't tell from that introduction. So it's our final season 4 episode 17.
17.
It's our Q&A.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we kind of wanted to chat a little bit because it's been quite a year, and we wanted to thank all our listeners.
Yeah.
And all the great feedback and questions, and it's just been, we're still having fun.
Which is the whole point.
The whole point. Because what did we say? We said we would only do this if it was fun.
Yeah.
No stress.
Yep.
And we weren't worried about how many people. And
yeah.
It was more just fun and listening.
Just wanting to share our discussions.
Yeah.
That we have anyway.
But we had some kind of interesting things that we found out about our podcast this year.
It was super fun.
Super fun.
With the Spotify wrap-up stuff that everyone's getting into. It's super fun to see. We found out that we are being streamed in 12 countries.
12 countries. Now, that could be one person in each country. We don't know.
Yeah, one person traveling around each country. But it says 12 countries.
12 countries.
Our 68% of our streams are from the United States.
Yes.
And the other top country is Singapore.
See, I wouldn't think that.
I know.
I'm excited. Ooh,
super interesting.
Singapore.
We could do a workshop in Singapore.
Anyone in Singapore, we're available.
And thank you for our 5.0 rating.
Yes, we're super excited about that. Yeah. And then, they even told us what our most streamed episode was.
Yeah, so our top episode is our Season 3, Episode 2, discussing Pilates cueing, discussing if there is a right way and a wrong way, and what cueing is. Episode. It's a really good episode. A lot of people have given us good feedback on that, because cueing's such a hot topic, debated thing in Pilates.
Yeah, like you have to be this and that and
what are you supposed to say? What's right? What's wrong?
Is there a right or a wrong? We answered it, I think.
Well, our answer was essentially there's no direct answer to that, right?
Because every single client is different that you're dealing with.
And I think our main thing was just have a conversation with your client.
Yeah.
Cueing is a conversation. That was our main takeaway.
That was our quote, I think, for that episode.
From that one, yeah. I think so.
I love that. Cueing is a conversation.
It's just a nice, simple way to just kind of streamline it. Just have a conversation with the client. Mm-hmm. What are they doing? What do they need to do? What do they need to focus on? What do they need to not focus on?
What are they discovering? What are they challenged by?
Yeah.
Because I love that question when you're working with someone. It's like when they make a little grimacy face or you see them kind of looking like they're confused and you're like, what do you find challenging right now? And there's always an answer and you're like, and then they're like, I feel really challenged by that. And you're like, oh, okay. Again, gives you more information.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's a conversation and it's getting information from the teacher to the client, from the client to the teacher.
Back and forth. And then what was the other one? It was our most shared, right?
So our most shared episode was Season 4, Episode 3 about the bored client.
Are they really bored?
Are they bored? How to deal with them? What if they say, I'm bored, this is boring? And that's another one that a lot of teachers deal with.
Yes. And we got a lot of feedback on that one, too, because it's like everyone's been there. Every single teacher. I don't care if you're fresh out of the box teaching or been teaching a long time. It's like, it just happens. Yeah. Or they just look bored.
Yeah, or they're not giving you, again, that feedback, that back and forth feedback. They're kind of a blank wall. It's hard to find out from them what they're feeling, and they're just not engaging.
Not engaging. But we're super excited because that was, I mean, I get the Pilates cueing because I love that episode.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so, like, there's just so much. Everyone has an opinion about it.
Yeah, there's so much there.
But I think also I wanted to, like, kind of, before we get into our questions, is I love the fact that the feedback we're getting and the comments we're getting are positive. It's like not argumentative. Even if someone has a different view or a different opinion, we're not getting these argumentative. It's more like, oh, that was really interesting, and I feel that it's just, again, this conversation.
It's a discussion.
It's a discussion.
That's what we hope to help foster with this in the Pilates community. Being able to have more of those conversations when people disagree about something, but then you can share why you think something different, or, oh, I can see why you think that. And instead of there just being, it's this way or that way and that's it.
Yeah.
And that way's wrong and mine's right.
Because, again, we're talking about teaching to the body in front of us, and so... We were kind of going through this with low back stuff and too much to get into right now. But yeah, it's like, what's best for the client?
Yeah, what works for them. And there might be, for anything, there might be some guidelines, like here's 3, like for this exercise, there's this, and this that you should maybe do. Mm-hmm. But maybe for this client, none of those work and you have to find something else.
Yeah, because it doesn't work for that body.
Yeah.
Or their thought process.
It doesn't translate to them, like how they're thinking of the exercise or how it's working for them on their body.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yay! That was exciting. So, we're very excited. We're heading into, this is our last episode of 2023. And we've got our whole list for 2024. And so we got a lot of questions. And it's funny because we took a lot of the questions and we just applied them to our next podcast because they all kind of went into that vein of boundaries with clients,
hard discussions
with clients, kind of that vein. So for those that sent those questions in, that's where you're going to hear the discussion.
We'll hear them first episode after the holidays.
After the holidays in January. So I think, do you want to go with the one from Anya, the teaching one?
Yeah.
So, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and we're verbatim because we don't have the question right in front of us. But basically, she's in teacher training, almost kind of over halfway, and getting into that teaching aspect of it, and having guinea pigs and assisted teaching, and wanted to hear from us kind of our own experience of that fear when you start teaching.
Yeah.
And the confidence. Because what she says when she's practicing and observing and kind of watching, that her self-talk is like very confident. She's like, oh, I know, and da-da-da-da-da. But then a body gets in front and that confidence just drops.
Yeah.
And so we kind of wanted to talk about not only in the teacher training, but also in your journey as a teacher.
Yeah. And it's super common. I mean, for people to feel fear with starting teaching for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And then even for more experienced teachers, starting with a new client or starting in a new space, teaching in a new
studio,
experience.
New surroundings, inheriting a client from another teacher, that's the shake of the confidence.
That always feels a little nerve-wracking the first couple sessions with the client if it's a new client for you, but they've been working with another teacher.
Who doesn't, obviously each teacher has their own style, their own way of speaking, their own cues, and then the client's like, well, so-and-so does it this way.
Right. And even if they don't say that, like, I feel like as teachers, we think that in our head. Like, oh, what if they do it this way or that way? Or what if they don't like this style? So I think that can sometimes help people's fear, knowing that everybody's always a little afraid.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have that fear, like not paralyzing fear, but it's good to have that fear because A, it means you care. A, you're in it.
Yeah.
You're not just, as I call it, what is it, flight attendant teaching?
Oh, just like going through the motions.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's that fear. There's those fears of your first pregnant client. I remember the first time I was teaching in the studio, and it was the first client I got that had a knee issue. And I'd never worked with anyone with a knee issue, and the studio owner was like, you'll be fine. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to break them. So it's all of those too, your firsts. Your firsts.
Yeah. First experience with various different orthopedic issues, different personalities.
Yep.
So it's always those firsts. And I think, the number one thing is practice and just getting those experiences. Because the more we see more and more and more clients, the less...
it shakes the confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you still have that, like, oh, are they going to like me? Oh, are they going to enjoy Pilates with me? that kind of thing, but that confidence, ground shaking gets more stable.
Yeah. You start to realize, I know what I'm talking about, and my clients do like me, and not every client is going to like every teacher. We're not going to fit with everyone, and you start to realize that that's okay. And honestly, that's needed, because if every client came and stayed, we wouldn't have any
variety
space for anybody.
Yeah.
There'd be too many clients. So
that's true. But I also think it's like when she talked about also that kind of moment when you're teaching and you feel that, I think you hit on it when you said knowing that you know what you're doing. And I think that really is like if you take a breath and go, you know what, I know what I'm doing. I'm keeping this client safe. I know I've been through training. I know what I'm doing. That kind of helps as well. I think it's when you're feeling lost, and especially in the beginning you are, because you're in teacher training. It's all new. So, there's that feeling of being lost and not quite knowing.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, I think the more, like you said, when you get out and then start teaching real people in terms of being in a space, that confidence just comes because you're like, I do know what I'm doing. When you're in teacher training, you're like, I'm not sure I know what I'm doing.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, shit.
And so
we got knocked off, not by you. So...
So I think you were making me think of two things. One was, I remember one of our shared friends who finished her training and started teaching. And then I remember her saying that when she got her certificate of completion, that she felt very, like this boost of confidence.
Yeah.
And
just that paper is like, yes.
Just that, like, okay, maybe I do know what I'm talking about. So just finishing that part, she said she felt so much more confident. And then maybe a year and a half after she finished.
Yeah, 'cause she didn't want to, which I totally get, and most people are this way. It's like you went through teacher training a whole year. It was a lot.
It's a lot.
And you don't want to then turn around and sit for the MPCP exam. She's like, I need a moment.
Yeah. And I think I did that too. So I waited maybe a year and a half or so before taking the MPCP exam for like a few different reasons. And I think that's a good amount of time and to take your time. And so she was saying then that after she was then, not only was she then getting a year and a half of more experience, but then when she got the MPCP certificate, that then she felt very confident, and that boosted her confidence even more.
Yeah, and I think that's key there, right? Just like someone validated.
Yeah, it's a validation.
You're teaching.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you graduated the teacher training program, and it's like, here, you did it. It's complete. You graduated.
Yeah.
And then you're like, yay. And then you sit down for this test, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, then there's, oh my God.
and then yay, you pass. It's like, like she said, it was like a full circle moment.
Yeah. It's completing that cycle, and now you feel like a fully fledged teacher, and you feel, okay, I feel validated that I do know what I'm talking about. Now, that being said, we still then do feel this fear at times, but it's different once you feel like grounded and rooted in being a teacher and having started having those experiences.
Yeah. And I think also you brought up a good point, is like it keeps getting like that confidence kind of shaken, like when you go into a new studio and you're the new teacher, or you go into you get a student or a client that's like maybe a little more abrasive, and you're like, oh my gosh, and they kind of scare you, and you're like, oh my gosh. Those moments, it's like, but just knowing, hey, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, and that self-talk really does help. And you made me think of like what we like to say about being authentic in your teaching. And so if you're continuing to teach true to yourself and to the client in front of you, what they need and how you need to guide them, then you also tend to feel more confident, because you're not trying to be something you're not. Yeah. You're not trying to do certain exercises that you're not confident teaching, or you don't believe in teaching, or whatever it is. If you're being true to yourself and to your client, then that's the number one thing.
Because I think people talk about this whole imposter syndrome thing, and to me that is you just not being your authentic self.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Because you feel that I'm not being myself.
Yeah.
Because I do think if you get that self-chatter of, I do know what I'm doing, then that can also take that a bit. But I remember being in teacher training, and there was this teacher that, oh my gosh, she talked so fast. And she was so handsy, like deep punching into your belly.
Oh, God.
And like move away from my hand. And the anatomy that flew out of her mouth in the amount of time was like, how is she doing this? And I didn't even know. And I thought, I'm never going to be able to do that. But then I realized, I don't have to do that.
You don't have to. That's not your style.
That's not my style. But yeah, when you're new and you're like, that's the teacher in the studio, right?
Yeah.
That's the one you're supposed to like look up to and whatever. That was intimidating. And you're like, your confidence is like, I'm never going to be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, and I think...
And that's normal.
It's totally normal. And I would be surprised to hear from a teacher that doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah. You know?
Everybody.
And if they do say, they're lying.
Yeah.
They're not telling the truth.
And I think that whole imposter syndrome idea, like, so many people deal with it. It's, like, unreal how many people deal with a level of that. In every spectrum. And I deal with it, and, like, everybody. And it's just, it's literally just trying to take a step back and realize what we do know, and also be honest about what we don't know.
Yeah, and I was going to say because we talk about it a lot, is continuing our journey. Like, always learning, always practicing, always having our own time in our Pilates with our teacher. Because I think that helps keep that confidence and that imposter syndrome where you're like, I'm continuing to learn, and you're just not stuck back when you graduated your teacher training.
Yeah. And you know that you're continuing to learn and improving and getting better. And there's no end point. It's just a constant journey.
Which is great.
Yeah. I mean, when we started working together, you started teaching me. I'd already been practicing Pilates 20 years or whatever. And I'm continuing to learn and improve my own practice, and how, like, learning, we're learning from each other, learning from other teachers always. Yeah.
I mean, I used to love, I can't anymore because my mentor passed, but I would go back to my home studio, which is what I called his studio, and with breaks that I had, and I would just sit in the studio and watch and listen, because I was always, I was graduated, I was out, but I always learned something.
Yeah.
Just by being in that space and listening. And I still have students that graduated that do the same thing. They'll text me, can I come observe your client?
That's fantastic.
And I'm like, yes. And you've been in here when they're like, can we watch Davida?
I'm like, hi.
But I just think that's like something that even observation of teachers is something you should always continue to kind of
just keep fostering. Yeah.
Keep learning that way.
Yeah. And I think that really does help, that level of fear, just continuing to learn.
Feeding your soul of teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
It's a big one, and just knowing that every single teacher feels that way.
Yeah. I think that really helps.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's the same thing when you go through teacher training and everyone's like, oh, I've been there. And it is. You remember all that. You remember how you felt during this part of it and this part of it. So everyone's been in it.
Yeah.
And everyone's had that first client. Everyone's been in their first studio. Everyone's in your next studio. You're the new person. And but I think that's pretty much just continuing to learn too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the main idea of it is everybody is always going to feel that. You're always going to feel a little fear.
Always.
And knowing that that's totally fine, normal, and almost good. Because like you said at the beginning, like that shows that you care.
Yeah.
And then with more experience, it changes. And changes how we feel that bit of fear stuff. And so experience makes a difference. Getting the certificate of completion and certificate help close that circle and give you that groundedness.
And I also think you hit a good point when you talked about what you don't know. because I think that also helps you in your confidence with your client. If they're going, oh, I'm feeling this, or I don't understand this and that, I heard, and you don't know, and for you to say, you know what, I'm not sure, let's figure this out, then they're like, oh, okay. Instead of you pretending,
making something up,
then that will eat at your confidence.
Yeah, because you know you're making
something up. So I think those moments too are
completely
key. Yeah, and I always say, it's like, I don't know, I'm not a doctor. I don't know, I can't see into your body, but let's figure this out, and kind of movement pattern, not fixing this, whatever.
Yeah, no, and then it's so true, because I feel like when I was really young and like first starting teaching, and a lot of people feel this way, like you just feel like you're supposed to know everything and have an answer for everything. And once I maybe matured a little bit or had more experience, when I realized that I could say I don't know, I actually do distinctly remember this feeling of feeling more confident and powerful in my being able to say to someone, I don't know the answer to that, but I can look it up for you. I can do some research for you. And maybe I can't find out,
but let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a good.
Just feeling honest. Yeah. Honest and authentic.
Be your authentic self. So the last question, because we only had 2.
Well, we put all the other ones in
in the next episode, is, and it comes from Bettina in Texas. And her question was, did you write it?
So about the NPCP certificate.
In taking the exam, she wanted to know if it was detrimental. Like, did it matter how you were taught, meaning traditional, classical, contemporary, fusion, whatever school you came from? Was that going to hurt you in the exam and the way they phrase things?
For the questions.
And the point is no. Because they have to make it where everyone, all over the world, different countries as well, and different styles of teaching in different schools are all coming to sit for this test. So it can't be so particular. But also that test is more about precautions and contraindications, and that they're not going deeply into a setup of something unless it's to give you an idea of like safety or whatever.
Yeah. And unless it's like a very common exercise. So there shouldn't...
They're not going to use something that you're like, I don't know what that is. Yeah. It's like,
like
rarely taught.
Egg beater or something
like that. And the other thing is, I know there was one when I took it, because I'd been out teaching for a long time by the time they came around, and I remember reading it not knowing what the name of that exercise, like it wasn't in my vocabulary, but I just read the description of where the client was, what the setup was, and then I was like, oh, that's what they're talking about.
So you can make sense of it.
So you can make sense of it that way.
But it is supposed to be, it's an overarching umbrella certification for all Pilates teachers, all schools of Pilates.
So that shouldn't matter in terms of passing or understanding. It's also multiple choice, so you can kind of like decipher. But yeah, and it's also one of those things that's a lot of like, what's the best answer here?
Yeah. What do you think is the best answer
in this situation?
Because some of the questions, I remember helping one of our friends studying more recently than I took it, and I was looking through some of the questions. I was like, you know what? Some of these, because her confidence was a little shaken with some of it, like, oh, I don't know the answer. And I was like, well, pick the one you think is the best. And
because
some
they
of
all
them,
could have worked.
Yeah, some of them, they all can work. But if you can deduce and rationalize and look through it, say, oh, well, you know what? If I had to pick the very best one,
this would be it. Yeah. And I think it's unnerving because you're taking this test that's like going to certify you, right? But they don't want you to fail.
Yeah.
And so, they have to be really conscious of the fact that they have people from all over the world, all these different schools, all taking this test. So it has to be worded in a way that no matter where you came from, you understand.
Yeah. So any of the Pilates methodologies, so classical, traditional, contemporary, fusion, if you have that foundation and
knowing the history, because they're probably going to ask questions on that, or Joseph Pilates, or
But their study guide is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's actually, after I was helping our friend study, I actually went and bought the updated study guide of it because I was like, this is actually a really good reference for teachers. Know.
And what's funny is because I was one of their schools and they're kind of redoing it. So I got an email the other day asking if I wanted any study guides or materials. I'm like, yes, send me everything. Whatever you've got, send it.
It's just great reference material. They have really good summaries and overviews of certain things.
And the study guide obviously is going to give you more confidence because you'll see how the questions are worded or what the thought process is in terms of what they're asking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and it's really helpful to study with somebody who's already taken it. And if anyone needs help studying, send us an email and DM us. We'll help you study.
Yeah. But even though we took it a long time ago.
But I actually had a lot of fun helping our friend study last year.
Yeah. She felt much better after.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, when I had to take it, it was the anatomy that was freaking me out.
Yep. Yeah, for a lot of people.
Yeah, because I'd been teaching and I mean, you're like, oh my God, what are they going to ask me?
Yeah.
And I remember another teacher who'd been teaching with me as long as I have, and we both were going to take it, and she was freaking out.
Like, yeah, I mean, but again, it's anatomy that should be pretty basic and connects to what we do. And again, helping this friend study, she similarly was getting stressed out about the anatomy portion. And I come from a heavy anatomy background in my studies, and she was like, how do you know all this stuff? And I was like, I still study, and I didn't know it all when I took the test.
Nope.
And the studying and over time, and you learn. And again, the study guide, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Because I feel like when you're taking the test and you're a new teacher, it's more about memorizing the anatomy and not really understanding what you're doing in terms of that. And then that comes later as you dive deeper and you do special courses and you do special topics.
Yeah, it just takes time.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It's like,
you get that embodied knowledge with time. You start to understand it physically as you're doing it more.
As you're teaching. Yeah. But it's very basic anatomy because it's just enough for the public to know you will keep the client safe, precautions and contraindications on injuries.
Yeah.
You're not going to do anything that's going to, send that client to the hospital.
Yeah, please no.
Anything like that. But those were the two questions that we
picked for you guys for this episode.
And all the other ones are going in our next episode.
Yeah.
Which is
there you go.
How to handle difficult clients. Was that what we decided? It was kind of going to be basically kind of like maybe the title of it right now, but we might change it.
Yeah, but it's next year. Our first episode is going to be on difficult conversations with clients.
That's it. Difficult conversations with clients.
It'll encompass a few different things that we've mentioned in other episodes. Some boundaries, some tough things to deal with.
Tough conversations.
Yeah, that a lot of teachers deal with clients. That some of them are things we've been dealing with more currently right now with our own clients, and so we'll share those.
Yeah.
But for this episode, we have
our sponsor,
which is Susie Sloth and her secret superpower. We have Pilates exercises and breath work practices.
And it's by Charlotte Marsh, who's actually a Pilates teacher.
Yep.
And she reached out to us before it was even published. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle. But
it's so sweet.
Cute.
We really, really love this. It's a book for kids on Pilates and breathwork, but it's also a really great reference for other Pilates teachers, breathwork coaches, other kinds of therapists, and people in healthy movement habits, and it's gotten a lot of really great reviews. I forget how long it's been out so far, but not that long.
It came out in October. It hasn't been out that long, and it's already doing really well.
It's so cute. It's illustrated.
Who doesn't love a sloth?
I know. And it's just such sweet
illustrations.
Yeah, and so the kids can connect to it, but also just for us looking at it, it's really fun and colorful and adorable. And there's just easy to follow instructions. about breath work and healthy habits, and Pilates.
And there's Susie Sloth, but she also has like animal friends.
Yeah.
In there, which
other
is nice.
like
elephants,
orangutans.
Yeah. And I think it's such a good idea. And Charlotte being a Pilates teacher and kind of a Pilates coach who really wanted to kind of go into this breathing and children's book. It's just perfect, I think.
So I don't know, I could be wrong, but I don't know of any other Pilates books geared towards kids.
Well, Jenna Zafina had one. Hiroshio was her dog. Oh. And it was Hiroshio Moves. That was cute, but it was more about like movement Pilates, where I feel like this one is more about the breath work and the movement.
Yeah, and the breathing techniques. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really lovely.
So go on Amazon, check it out. It's by Charlotte Marsh.
It's Susie Sloth.
And her secret superpower. So, so thank you, Charlotte Marsh, and we love it, and so go check it out.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for a wonderful 2024.
Well, it has been 2023.
We're going into 2024. Oh my gosh, see? We're 2
ready.
Weeks. Yeah, we're like, holiday season. We're both taking off the Christmas
that last week of the year.
As you can tell, we probably made at this point.
So have happy holidays, happy new year.
Yes.
Join us next year.
And keep following us on Instagram because we're going to do our... We decided not to do quotes, but we decided to do something else.
We'll do a little live wrap-up of the year with quote snippets from...
Quote snippets. That's what it was. Yes.
Our favorite quotes of the year.
Yeah. So enjoy. Thank you for listening. Oh, and we forgot to even say we had theme music, but we did.
Oh, we will. Of course.
Yeah, and then it will come on again at this point. So bye.
Bye.